This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. My name is Janice Pons. I'm the host on this podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. Listen, we are going to keep going forward on this journey that we are on, gaining understanding. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. But in all you're getting, get understanding. Understanding is powerful, and that's what we're getting together as we talk about these different things going on in our nation, because we got a lot coming at us. So we're going to keep going on this amazing journey that we are on together, and I am just loving it and having a ball. Thank you again for all of those who are listening to the podcast, who are downloading it. Thank you for your contribution to the 1,320% growth of this podcast, and it's going to different nations all over the world. And I am just thrilled and so grateful, and I say thank you. So we have our presidential seal here to remind us to pray for our president. We have a flag that's behind us that is symbolic of our nation and us forming a more perfect union, us flowing together as one. And you know, prayer is an intervention. My desire is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point us towards intervention. Prayer is my first intervention, and I'm continuing to pray for the 265,900,000 working Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet in 2024. 80% of the Americans said we were going in the wrong direction, and we're going in a totally different direction now. And after this election that we had in 2024, it's very clear that we're going in another direction, and a lot of people don't like it, and a lot love it. So tonight, we're going to examine something that has generated a lot of discussion in our nation, and that is, we have in our presence rogue players. A rogue, what is a rogue? They're rogue. What is a rogue? A rogue is a dishonest, untrustworthy person. I've heard the word scoundrel associated with a rogue. In our nation, there's a lot of rogue action going on, and there are a lot of rogue players. And it's affected what's going on in our nation, and it has affected us, we the people. And so this warrants us to consider some things, and that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to look at rogue players, and then we're going to talk about when we're dealing with these rogue presentations. I always say this: what you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with that? And so we're gonna talk about taking a stand. Unelected, unaccountable, and out of control people in our nation under the federal judiciary has taken power that it was never meant to have. Now, some are saying that President Trump's response to all of these dynamics is going to define his administration. If a federal judge told President Trump to deliver a specifically curated speech and then pull down his pants on live TV, should he comply? Just say, you need to do that. If he refused, would that trigger a constitutional crisis? If you pay attention to the left, the answer might very well be, yes, it's a constitutional crisis. Because they'll say anything is a constitutional crisis. And what I'm observing is that the things that they are saying is a constitutional crisis are the very things that they've been doing. And they'll just say things. And what I just laid out there can sound crazy, but it's like they say anything, and it's like, we're in a constitutional crisis. And so what they do, the media, different one, they say the same thing, and it's a lie. And then we, the people, supposed to say, well, it's a constitutional crisis. Trump is destroying America. What was going on the 4 previous years? And I talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. And I'm not making it up. The only constitutional crisis we face is the erroneous idea that the judiciary is at the top of the food chain rather than on equal footing with the other 2 branches of government. Right now, we got these rogue judges jurisdicting what's going on in our nation. They are totally out of line. And it takes time to deal with them in court. But hold on, we're going to dissect some things here. Now, we want President Trump to be successful in making this country better. He is going to remind, and it looks like the Supreme Court is going to have some play in this, because if they rule by the Constitution, he's going to win. That's what happened with that Alien Act, where all he was doing was trying to protect the nation. And he acted on that Alien Act. It had only been used 3 times in our history. But he was saying the constitutional Republic of the United States of America was under threat. And it was real easy to prove. So he is going to, and you better believe he's going to take all the avenues involved to remind the judiciary of its impotence to enforce unconstitutional edicts. Yeah. Granting courts ultimate veto power over public policy creates a judicial supremacy that the founders of our nation never intended. And they addressed it. We're going to get there in a minute. They knew. See, it was like, we got to have balance of power. We got to have balance of power. And it's never been more evident than right now, the need for us to have this balance of power. So federal judges have repeatedly attempted to restrict President Trump's presidential authority, the executive branch, with overreaching demands. They have ordered the administration to fund private foreign aid organizations, reinstate specific personnel, and publish designated information on government websites. That's just part of what they're trying to demand. In one case, a judge even directed the Secretary of Defense to retract a statement on the Pentagon's policy regarding transgender troops. That's going to be worked out in the courts. And of something that happened in Great Britain was that they said, now this was interesting, as liberal as they are, but they said their Supreme Court ruled that if someone had transgendered, that did not make them a biological woman. That has a lot of implications. I'll move on. That was Great Britain, but I was like, wow. And I made a post about that. It is really worth reading. And go look it up. The Supreme Court's ruling in the United Kingdom regarding to the whole transgender dynamic. It's very thought-provoking. So, this U.S. district judge that we've been hearing about, James Boasberg, I think that's his name, Boasberg, he attempted to block, this is what he did. He attempted to block the deportation of violent gang members under the Alien Enemies Act that I just referred to a minute ago. What's next? What's next? Will they order President Trump to stop threatening? Now, you've got Hamas. You got different people that threaten to get rid of us, obliterate us. What are they going to say? What is the judge going to say that he can't hold the line with them? The ones that on October 7th parachuted down into Israel and did what they did. And a lot of people, you know what gets me about that whole dynamic? They won't say what they did. And came in and about 2,000, I think it was about 2,000 Israelis lost their lives. And they're supposed to go, oh, they're not just so pitiful what happened to us. They started fighting back. So are they going to tell him that he needs to remove Andrew Jackson from the Oval Office, just like they said that we needed to remove the statue of Frederick Douglass? What do we need? Well, I mean, these people, these presidents that are in the White House statues and all this is on Capitol Hill. Guys, this is a part of history. Judges have forgotten who they are. Unelected shields against government overreach, not legislative swords that can impose policies. And that's what they've been doing. Now, this warrants a lot of thought. Perhaps our president needs to examine that bust of old Hickory, Andrew Jackson, in the Oval Office and recall a response to Chief Justice John Marshall's ruling in Worcester versus Georgia. John Marshall has made his decision. Now let him enforce it. So enforce it. If you made a decision, enforce it. Now, there are a lot of diamonds. You got the judiciary, we have the legislative, and we have the executive branch. The judiciary branch, this is what's going on. They're trying to legislate from the benches. Out of place, illegal, out of order. But these, and they'll say, Obama appointed judge, Biden appointed judge, Trump appointed judge. Are they supposed to be legislating from the benches? Imagine if the president imposed the same restrictions on the judiciary that federal judges are placing on President Trump, these federal judges. What if he dictated how judges manage their websites, control which clerks they could hire, or ordered them to rule a certain way? The overreach would be obvious. Unlike judges, Congress has the authority to regulate every aspect of judicial proceedings, hiring, budget, and conduct. Judges, however, cannot impose similar policies on the other branches, a fact that frustrates judicial supremacists. This limitation exists for a reason. Federal judges are unelected. They're unelected. But if they were meant to wield supreme or even equal power over public policy, they would be subject to re-election, as many state judges are. If judicial power has clear limits, then what is its actual role, distinct from the executive and the legislative branches, guys? That's our government. Legislative branch, it's Congress, the Senate, and the House. They make the laws. The executive branch enforces the laws. That's the president. It's cabinet. That's what they work. They work on his behalf. And then we have the judiciary branch of government. They interpret the laws based on the Constitution. Now, these type of dynamics are not new. When they were hashing this thing out back in the 1800s, there was a lot of dynamics going on because they were trying to accomplish a balance of power. See, what these federal judges are doing, they are out of control, they're illegal, and it is not a balance of power. So in a letter to William Torrance dated June 11th of 1815, Thomas Jefferson explained who decides constitutional questions. Now listen to what he said. Listen to these dynamics. Certainly, there is not a word in the Constitution which has given judges that power, authority to decide on the constitutionality of a law more than to the executive or legislative branches questions of property or character and of crime being ascribed to the judges. Through a definite course of legal proceeding, laws involving such questions belong, of course, to them, and as they decide on them ultimately and without appeal, they, of course, decide for themselves the constitutional validity of the law. That's a lot of thought in that. Now, bankruptcy cases and criminal charges illustrate the proper scope of judicial authority. Judges can uphold or overturn criminal convictions and resolve disputes over property and bankruptcy. However, when conflicts arise over laws or the Constitution involving the other branches, the judiciary was never meant to have the final say. Granting courts ultimate veto power over public policy creates a judicial supremacy that the founders never intended. They set this thing up that it will work according to the Constitution. Now, we went through bucking and bucking and resisting and all this stuff of fighting and not giving people rights, and the 14th and 15th Amendment, for example, that not one Democrat voted for, that said that if you, whatever state, for example, the 14th Amendment said whatever state you were born in, you had the rights of any citizen born in that state. That was for the slaves, former slaves. That not one Democrat voted for it. The 14th Amendment. Look it up. I'm not making this stuff up. I understand all these dynamics. The 15th Amendment gave black men the right to vote, former slaves. I think it was ratified in 1870. Not one Democrat voted for it. They didn't want them voting. They didn't want them involved in the political process, just like they don't want them now on the Republican side. And the Republican Party opened up their arms wide open and had those black men, former slaves, involved in the political process. And hundreds of them went on to become congressmen. That is not in our history books. And they contributed to approximately 24 civil rights bills and acts. Civil rights acts being put in place. And when the Democrats got control, that was during Reconstruction. Amazing what happened during Reconstruction. Oh, boy. Oh, yeah. And when the Democrats got control, they didn't want to let their slaves go. Like, they were livid. Who are these black men on Capitol Hill making laws? Boy, they came out like gangbusters. KKK, the whole 9 yards. They had a push card that had the pictures of black men who were leaders on there and white people that were helping them. And they were after them to get rid of them. And you know how they did it, what they did back then. Yeah. And so in 1872, the Democratic Party got control of the Congress again and put us back in slavery for 90 years. Going up to my lifetime through Jim Crow. So we had slavery, sharecropping, Jim Crow, and then the 1964 and 1965 Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act, which and Johnson has said, well, they getting a little uppity. We got to get them some kind of end bill. Y'all know the N word. We got to get some kind of end bill. I've read all this history, and it's just original documents. He couldn't even get enough votes amongst the Democrats to pass the 1964 and the 1965 Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act. It was the Republicans that passed that. So don't tell me what the Democrats were always for, baby. They were the ones that were doing all that stuff historically for centuries. And you had Republicans that were helping you. Y'all black folk they don't want you to know history accurately told. And you're running around here offended. All based on lies. The same party that did all that stuff to us wouldn't vote on the 14th and 15th Amendment, wouldn't vote on the 1964 and 1965 Civil Rights Act, wouldn't vote on it. And then we were still striving during Jim Crow. 82% of black homes had a man and a woman in the home thriving in our own communities because you couldn't do things outside the community because of Jim Crow laws that the Democrats put in place. True story. Make it make sense. And so what they do, Johnson shows up with the Great Society. We want to help the poor. And, we want to help the poor. And so what they give you, they say, you can't, we're going to help you. We're going to help you. We put our foot on your neck, but we want to help you. So we're going to give you a check and a block of cheese. When I say that trips people out. But it's what they did during welfare. But there was a caveat. You couldn't have a man in the home. So they split up the family. So women had more babies to get what? More money. That statistic has gotten a little bit better. 5-6 years ago, 77% of black babies in America were born to single moms. Now it's up to 69. Last time I looked at it was 69.5%. Let's round it off to 70%. Do you see why policies matter? Those are platforms of the Democrat Party. Now look at what they're doing now. Indoctrinating our children. Illegal immigration. They don't care about us. They got bigger issues that have lined their pockets through these NGOs. And that's I'm going to do a whole podcast on that. NGOs, non-governmental organizations. That's where our billions of dollars were going to. And they will go and they will run them and get these fat salaries getting over on us like a fat rat. Now, President Trump is calling a spade, and it's we the people, we giving them a mandate, and you got these rogue judges that are trying to override us. So, I know this is making sense to some of y'all. Granting courts ultimate veto power over public policy creates a judicial supremacy that the founders never intended. It was never intended to be that way. Each branch has a duty to interpret and apply the law within its own constitutional authority. Jefferson, he reiterated this principle in the same letter. Now listen to this. Now just listen to the words. Listen to the spirit of what our founders. These guys wasn't perfect. But they were hammering out some things. It's like, guys, we just got to get to that. Yeah, I know he had slaves. But all that changed. That changed. All that economic-driven presentation of slavery. So was sharecropping that my dad lived under and had to quit school when he was in his 6th grade. It was another form of slavery. All about this right here, money. All this mess that's been going on, it's driven by money, guys. It's been driven by money. They've been getting over on us like a fat rat. And now it's this NGOs. They brought all these illegal aliens in, illegal immigrants in. That was driven by money. Kind of like slave labor. Why? They paid them under the table. That's a whole nother. I did a podcast on that. And I want to dissect that more because I have a better understanding of really what happened. Let's keep going. Now, listen to what Jefferson said. This is so interesting. On laws, again, prescribing executive action and to be administered by that branch, executive action, and to be administered by that branch, ultimately and without appeal, the executive must decide for themselves also whether under the Constitution, they are valid or not. The laws. So also as to laws governing the proceedings of the legislator, that body must judge for itself the constitutionality of the law, and equally without appeal or control from its coordinate branches, and in general, that branch which is to act ultimately and without appeal on any law is the rightful expositor of the validity of the law, uncontrolled by the opinions of the other coordinate authorities. Y'all might need to rewind. When you hear this, rewind and listen to that and really let your mind wrap around it. Treating the courts as the final authority on public policy grants them more power than even James Madison's rejected Council of Revision proposal at the Constitutional Convention. They were talking about we got to have a balance of power. This thing could get so out of control as they were organizing the nation. Under Madison's Virginia plan, Congress would have been a dominant unicameral body with the ability to veto state laws. Why? To keep it in check. He suggested, Madison did, that the president and Supreme Court jointly review laws before enactment, giving the judiciary a role in the legislative veto. Even in that system, however, the judiciary would not have acted alone. It would have shared power with an elective executive. The system the framers ultimately adopted works differently. Two legislative chambers check each other, the Senate and the House. It works beautifully when it's done right. Two legislative chambers check each other, and the president holds veto power. That's how it's set up. Oh, yeah. Are we now supposed to believe that the Supreme Court or even a single district judge has more authority than the elected House, Senate, President, and state governments combined? Should an unelected judge wield a stronger veto than the one the framers deliberately withheld from an entire elected Congress? No such judicial veto even exists. Resolving disputes among branches. Listen, let's look at that. What about when there are disputes among branches? What happens when branches of government disagree and exercise their powers in conflicting ways? What happens? Is that a constitutional crisis? Listen to the wisdom of Jefferson. This man wasn't perfect, but listen. Wow. When I was reading it, this is what he said. He said, it may be said that contradictory decisions may arise in such case and produce inconvenience. This is possible and is a necessary failing in all human proceedings. Yet, the prudence of the public functionaries and authority of public opinion will generally produce accommodation. Wow. Ultimately, the public will decide who's right. Our system isn't perfect, but it is fair. Listen, it's far better than allowing unelected judges to impose on the people what hundreds of elected legislators could not. What do you mean one judge is going to show up and decide that something that was deemed to be unsafe? And our commander-in-chief is stepping forward to say he has a responsibility to protect us from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And that's what he was acting on. And you got some rogue judge that shows up and imposes and think he's going to legislate from the bench. Baby, it's a new day in America. And Obama did it under Doma, and all these different things unfolded. Oh my God, I could go on, and I've covered some of that thing in previous podcasts. They didn't even vote on some of these things in the legislators on Capitol Hill. All of these dynamics speak loudly regarding the need to take a stand. So, from our clinical perspective, real quickly, let's look at something regarding the need to take a stand. Our clinical perspective, we're going to examine what may be considered when taking a stand. What it really means when someone is taking a stand, and what does that mean, and why is it important? In a world filled with diverse opinions, beliefs, and values, taking a stand on issues that matter to us is essential for personal integrity and societal progress. Whether it's speaking up for justice, defending a personal belief, or making a tough decision, taking a stand defines who we are and what we stand for. Let us, and I'm telling you, and I can right now hear people saying, well, I'm going to stand for this. And listen, I tell you what, if it's bringing disorder and not protecting our children and infringing upon the rights of girls and women and our children, listen, there are a lot of dynamics we need to be looking at. And we can't take a small percentage of Americans and say, well, that's how the whole country needs to be. You're not taking over our country with that. This is why there's pushback. Where is protection? Where are the rights of women, girls, children? Now let us delve into the concept of taking a stand. It's important. And how all of this influences us when we choose to take a stand or when we don't. We're going to take a stand or we're not. What does it mean to take a stand? Taking a stand means expressing and acting on your beliefs, values, and principles, especially in the face of opposition or indifference. Why do you think these parents were showing up at school board meetings and asking questions about all this material that their children will be exposed to in elementary school? All these acts, these physical acts depicted in these books, and the way that they were able to say that it wasn't the P word, P-O-R, you know what I mean? It wasn't that, orography, that word. Was that it was animation. Still there, words and all, motions of things. It's animation. Woo! Obama's safe school czar, Kevin Jennings. Look him up. Look him up. He's the one that got it started. The curriculum. Listen. All this involves making a deliberate choice to support or oppose something based on your convictions. This act of assertion can manifest in various ways, such as voicing your opinion in a discussion, advocating for a cause, or making ethical choices in your personal and professional life. Why is this important? Why? Integrity and authenticity. When you're taking a stand, integrity and authenticity is involved. Taking a stand reflects your true self and maintains your integrity. It shows that you're genuine and consistent with your values, earning the respect and trust of others. Then there is the empowerment and confidence factor of taking a stand. Standing up for what you believe in can be empowering. It can boost your confidence as you take control of your actions and decisions rather than being swayed by external influences. Then there's the influence and change factor. Individuals who take a stand can inspire and influence others. They often become catalysts for change. Yeah, catalysts for change. They influence circles of people and larger societal movements. Then there is building resilience in America. Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about dealing with these rogue players and when we need to take a stand. When we're building resilience and taking a stand, especially in challenging situations, it builds resilience. It teaches you to face adversity, how to handle criticism. I've become an expert in that. And to stand firm in your beliefs, especially when it has to do with our little precious children. How does taking a stand influence yourself when you do it? Is it possible that when you take a stand, it influences you having a positive self-image? Taking a stand could possibly enhance your self-esteem and your self-worth. Why are you here? Why were you put on this earth? What is your purpose? Maybe whatever you choose or feel led to or feel called to take a stand for, that's your purpose. Knowing that you have acted according to your principles can give you a deep sense of satisfaction and pride. How else can it affect your self-image? Growth, learning, standing up for your beliefs often requires critical thinking, research, ask me how I know, and understanding different perspectives. This process promotes personal growth and learning. There's a strengthening of relationships that can occur by taking a stand. You attract like-minded individuals and build stronger. You know, and I venture to say, with this podcast growing 1,320% this year, I'm thinking there are like-minded people that there's like, what is she saying? And you're thinking, well, that's what I think. And you appreciate hearing it. Or you might be challenged, or you know what? You might disagree, and that's okay. That's okay. We can agree to disagree. But I'm going to respect you. And I like to receive the same. But if you don't do it, you won't steal my joy. And I've learned to establish boundaries. And I tell you what, everybody doesn't have access to me. Boy, that's a revelation that I got not too long ago. It's beautiful in setting boundaries. It's empowering. Yes, it is. It's very empowering. I had to learn it. Oh, they don't get access to me. And it might even be somebody that you love in your family, but you're not going to let them abuse you. Yeah, it's okay. Like-minded individuals become stronger together. You can have meaningful relationships. People who share your values, they're going to respect and they're going to support your stance. What happens when you don't take a stand? What happens? Regret, self-doubt, maybe. What happens when you have regret and self-doubt? Failing to take a stand when it matters can lead possibly to feelings of regret and self-doubt. You might question your decisions. You might feel guilty or not acting on your principles. What about loss of respect? Consistently avoiding taking a stand can lead to loss of respect from others. You know, it's just like, wow, this can happen with pastors. I've seen it with spiritual leaders. Don't even take a stand. It's like, and then they expect somebody to look, oh, that's a whole other podcast. It's like, God, you're not even taking a stand for some basic things, guys. People may perceive you as indecisive or lacking in conviction. What about missed opportunities? Not taking a stand can mean missing out on opportunities to make a positive impact or contribute to meaningful change. Your voice and actions matter in shaping the world around you. Workplace ethics. Yes, there's this part called workplace ethics. There are situations you discover that your company is engaging possibly in unethical practices. We're talking about taking a stand still. When you take a stand, sometimes, it's just like, this is flat out illegal. taking a stand, reporting an issue to higher authorities. Why? It's their lane. It's their lane to be able to make determinations. That's why you got whistleblowing. That's why you have the EEOC. Then there's something called influence. It may lead to positive changes in companies, policies, and improve the workplace environment. Why? Because they're going to be held accountable while also reinforcing your integrity. But there's someone else that drives it because that's what they do. Oh, then there's social justice. Yeah. You can witness discrimination or injustice in your community, and sometimes you make a stand and say, well, you just want the right thing. You're going to take a stand, organizing or participating in signing petitions or advocating for change through social media. Then there is influence. It can bring awareness to the issue, mobilize support, and lead to legislative or social reforms. There's something called personal boundaries, where you take a stand, communicating your boundaries clearly. I've had to do that and master that. And I'm confident and I'm stronger in who God's called me to be. Boundaries are clear where you assert them firmly and directly and respectfully. You can have influence. This can improve your relationships by establishing mutual respect and understanding. Taking a stand is a powerful act that defines your character and influence the world around you. While it requires courage and conviction, the benefits of living authentically, building resilience. And yeah, you're going to build some resistance too, because you're going to have to learn, what do you have to resist as you take a stand? So you can build resistance or setting boundaries. You can benefit from living authentically. You can build resilience and making a positive impact. It moves you in making a positive impact that has with it you embracing responsibility to stand up for your beliefs and to stand up and lead a fulfilling and a meaningful life. What have we looked at tonight? We've looked at role players. What are we going to do with them? Accountability. Oh, yeah. It affects us and our nation. And then we've also examined what happens when we take a stand. Yes, we have. Oh, we've gone a little longer than normal, but I'm not taking any of it back. If we don't stand for something, guys, we're going to fall for anything. We're just going to fall for anything. Listen, we're going to keep coming back. We're going from destruction to dignity. These role players are part of destruction. But we have a pathway of dignity. And when we take a stand, that's a part of taking dignity, guys. It's just taking dignity that we don't have to take things laying down. We can organize. We can be together. We can support one another as we form a more perfect union, as we go together from destruction to dignity. And the clinical perspectives are just strategy, skills, and tools to think about: prayer, talking, being together, supporting one another, loving one another. And we got spiritual truths, because a house divided against itself, if the house is divided against itself, it will not stand. And we got more and more Americans that are getting a revelation and an understanding, and we're flowing together as one, forming, I love this, a more perfect union in this great nation. Listen, keep coming back. Thank you. I appreciate you. I am praying for you. I love you. I support you. I will see you next week. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are one power, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation.